Today I'm here with my friend Randy, who is also an adult child of divorce. And we're going to talk through the questions that are in the webinar that I've created, How to Talk with a Friend About Your Parents' Breakup. Randy and I have known each other a long time, and we actually have talked about our parents' breakup at different points and have met some of each other's parents and family members. Randy, so great to have you here.
Thanks, Tanya. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, so I'd sent you the 10 questions, Randy, and we'll just kind of walk through them. I think as you talk about it and think about it, sometimes the light bulbs come on, and then you hear
Yep.
somebody else's perspective and you go, oh, yeah, me too, or I never thought about it that way. So, where did you grow up, Randy?
I'm from Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. I have a younger sister who's 2 years younger than me. Was born in the 60s, thus the gray beard.
Yeah, very good.
And now I live in Vancouver on the West Coast. Yeah, I was 7 years old.
How old were you when your parents broke up? And maybe just tell us a little bit, what do you remember about kind of when they broke up? How did you find out?
Actually, very vivid. I still can picture the whole setting in my head of what happened. My parents called me into the kitchen table of the house we were living at. I can still see the table. I can still see the chair. I can see where I sat. I saw where my dad sat, my mom
Mhm.
sat. Both of their eyes were swollen from
Mhm.
crying. They told me that my dad was moving out. They didn't really say why. They just said, I'm moving out and I will no longer be living here. Please don't tell anybody. This is 1970, 71, summer of 71.
Mhm.
We were also uh, Catholics, Roman Catholic. We weren't strong practicing Roman Catholics, but I went to a Roman Catholic school. We went to church on Christmas and Easter. It was within our family. So I think that was also a part of it. There's a bit of shame. That would be what I would reflect on now. I would think that's why they told me, don't talk to anybody about it. I remember going outside and then playing with my friends in the neighborhood, and I told them right away. So for my personality, I had to get it out. I
Yeah.
just could not.
Yeah.
I couldn't contain it. Of course, intellectually you don't understand it, especially at 7 years of age. There was no intellect. Emotionally, I felt
Mhm.
something. It didn't feel good, and ultimately, and this might be a question later, but I'll answer it now. But ultimately, I think what it did was in my own head, because it didn't make sense why they were splitting up
Mhm.
intellectually.
Mhm.
I thought it must be my fault. Like I took the burden. Nobody said that, but I took the burden. I was probably not the easiest child because I asked lots of questions and it didn't make sense to me intellectually because even though they could have probably sat down and I don't remember them doing that. This is why I think we just don't get along,
Mhm.
something like that. Emotionally, you go, well, you tell yourself that,
Mhm.
no, it must be me.
It is. It's amazing that kids, we
Yeah.
think that we are in control of these things and we're
Yeah.
not in control of. I didn't really say why, but did you find out later on what the reason was or any more details about their breakup?
Not until I was an adult. Growing
Mhm.
up, we lived with my mom. My mom never said anything negative about my dad while we were children. I must have been a late teen where she said, the reason why your father left?
Mhm.
I was like, no, he left because he was having an affair with somebody, a
Mhm.
younger woman. We got to know quite well.
Mhm.
So, but I did not know the dynamic of that relationship and how
Mhm.
that started.
Okay,
But that's how I found out later that, yeah, that my dad, that was really,
yeah.
obviously there must have been other reasons for the breakup, but and my mom did tell me some of that. I think that was the line.
So let's just go back then to after your dad moved out. And I'm just curious, in the following years, from seven till whenever you were a teenager, you lived with your mom, but did you stay in that house? Did you move houses? How often did you see your dad? Did your mom get remarried? Like kind of in your childhood now, we're just looking at that kind of those years.
We lived in that where that happened, where they told me,
Mhm.
eventually my mom ended up, we moved to another part of the city. At that same time, when she moved to this other place, she met another person and she moved in with him.
You guys all moved in with him.
Yeah. So we
Okay.
moved in. That was about a year or so. And in another neighborhood very close by, my mom ended up buying a house and then we moved into that. And then that was basically where I grew up, probably 9, 10 years old and beyond. With my dad, we would see him, my sister and I, every 2 weeks. We would go on a Friday night. He would pick us up on a Friday night and he would drop us off on a Sunday night. So that was kind of the routine all the way up until we were, I was a teenager
Mhm.
until I left. I left home when I was 15. I didn't mind going to my dad's till I became about 10 or 11 because he lived in Quebec and he lived in the country and we didn't know anybody. You're leaving your friends.
Mhm.
And I started not liking that. That
Mhm.
was, it became boring. Started pushing back on
Mhm.
not wanting to.
Probably a lot of kids of divorce can relate to this. Like, now you have to spend time with this parent, and maybe it feels awkward, maybe it feels unnatural. How would you say your relationship with your dad was as a kid?
I really did idolize him. I didn't really know what he did from a work point of view. I remember if people asked me, I remember for one, I have this memory of um, going to school again,
Mhm.
because you're not around all the time, right? And so you're not really sure. I would be asked, "What's your dad do?" And I would make things up. But I really love my dad. I, I think like many young boys,
Mhm.
um, I think my dad for the most part, as I look back, he did what he thought he was best to do with kids. I think he was very self-oriented. It was about him, it wasn't about us.
Mhm.
Yes, we were his kids. He loved us. There was no question that he loved us. I don't know if he knew how to do it like as a full-time dad. Like he never really was. He did have another son, 25 years younger than me,
Okay.
in another relationship. I don't know how well that is. And actually, he's estranged from us. And my dad, even in the last years of his life, had no connection with him. So I think as I changed as an adult and understood more, I had more empathy for him. He was a typical mm, selfish
Mhm.
male. He was the youngest of three. He was the baby, and I see how he lived his life. Then, I definitely have empathy for him and understand him. But I
Mhm.
also saw things in me that
Mhm.
were like him, and I wanted to emulate,
Mhm.
him, especially as a
Mhm.
child and even as a teenager. I wanted to be like my dad because I
Mhm.
I liked my dad. And in some ways, I liked him more than my mom.
Okay, yeah.
She was the discipline.
Uh-huh.
Right? She was the one that had to deal with me. There's a positive in the child of divorce. The one that's probably away, they cater to you. We got a lot of what we wanted. I don't
Mhm.
think that's necessarily good, but it's just, I think that's kind of somewhat of the reality.
I do think that that does happen a lot, especially with the parent that doesn't have custody most often, is that when they do have the kids, they will do whatever they want. It's kind of entertainment. And I've had children of divorce tell me, I never actually saw what normal life was like for my dad or for my mom because every time I visited them, it was just like holiday or vacation. And so they missed out on having that type of interaction with their parent, like you're describing with your dad. You never really knew what he did. You never learned from him about maybe house chores or how to have a relationship or kind of some of those things that you would have if your dad was living in the home with you. So,
But I did have a job. My job was go get the beer out of the fridge.
mm,
That was my job.
okay. We're gonna go back in time a little bit. Actually, tell me
Mhm.
about your family before the breakup. What is there like a key memory?
I don't
Okay.
actually.
Hmm.
And I think that's probably at that age, you don't have memories that are compounded on memories. I mean, my memories are going to my grandparents. Memory is my dad's father would come and pick me up and we'd go grocery shopping. I remember being in the car. As a family with the four of us, I don't really have,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't have. So with my dad, again, with my dad, of him coming home from work, he would always fall asleep in the evenings after dinner, watching TV or something, and I would be lying on the couch with him. That would be,
Mm.
a time where I remember of feeling actually warmth. As
Yeah.
the family unit, I don't remember that.
That is actually very common, Randy, that adult children of divorce will have gaps in our memory where we just don't remember large chunks of our childhood before and after the breakup. Okay, but let's talk actually just about your mom a little bit. So
Mm,
after the breakup, you talked about your mom being the disciplinarian. How
yeah,
else would you describe your relationship with your mom?
always tense. I was an argumentative person, child, a difficult child for her. If she told me to pick up a glass, I would pick up a mug. I've wondered in my subconscious
Hmm.
that if I acted up, definitely at school this happened, if I acted up, my parents would be together. I do wonder if that was purposeful. Probably learned that, oh, when I do that, they show up together, especially school. My mom had to deal with me. Again, I asked why lots. I was argumentative. She worked hard. I mean, she was incredible from a single mom point of view. She came out of poverty, very dysfunctional family life, worked hard. She provided. She did the best that she could do. She ended up living with this guy, and she would even say, it was a bad choice, but it was actually he loved her, paid attention to her, which she did not have from my dad. And he was not good with us. He did not like us. That was where it got a little ugly. In our relationship, it was tense, where my sister was very compliant. I had issues that obviously I had to deal with, and as I got older, I realized that, I guess I always felt manipulated. It was very, very difficult. And she would say that. She became a follower of Jesus because of me, because of how much stuff I put her through.
Well, we're kind of touching on it a little bit, but maybe just to frame the question. So, how would you say that you coped with the breakup when you were a kid and then into a teenager? So, you're kind of touching on some of the things.
When I saw that question, I
Hmm.
asked, I'm like, would I have still done the things that I did, whether I had parents that had been stayed together? Technically, actually, they weren't divorced for 15 years later. They just separated, right? And then they live with people and so forth. When I was 16, they tried to get back together. That didn't,
Didn't work
yeah,
out.
that my coping, I turned to drugs. That was my thing. But that was when I was 13 or 12. When I smoked that first joint, that was like,
Mm.
this is amazing. I just felt so good. Also acceptance of friends, and all of that. Lots of teenagers, that becomes the big thing. You want acceptance and be a part of with your peers, and you have peer pressure. And so I definitely was pressured by my peers. I was attracted to the bad people. I got involved in drugs. So I loved the drugs. Drugs was great for me. I would say that was my main cope.
So then curious about the next question is kind of about, so those are some of the external things, right? The drugs and kind of being rebellious or whatever you talked about. What were the messages that you were believing about yourself, maybe about other people, even about God or about your parents, kind of as a result of the breakup?
I was deeply insecure as an individual, my self-worth, how I viewed myself. I didn't like myself. I didn't like the way I looked. I was skinny. Not a lot of people were split up. So my family was kind of funny. I was deeply insecure. Therefore, what I did, I told lies and I tried to attract attention. Those would have been my inner things. And yeah.
Mhm. The next question is about love, relationships, marriage. How would you say that your parents' breakup impacted those or shaped those views?
I never thought it really did, but of course it does. Uh, so the big change in my life was Jesus interfered in my life. He stepped into it, and that just radically changed me and changed the way I thought about myself, understood who I was, understood who he was. Even being
Good stuff.
raised in a Roman Catholic
Yeah.
church, I
Uh,
think there's a lot of the stuff that I received going to Catholic school, or what I understood. I want to say this is what the Catholic Church is teaching. This is how I received it. We do bad things, and we just need to say these prayers,
mhm,
and that cleans us up. The other thing is too is I'm really not a deep thinker. I it's hard work. I don't want to do hard work. That was kind of my thing. It was how do you get out of things? But I'm really not naturally a deep reflective. I think future. I don't even like looking at the back, past. So then when the question, I don't know if I have a real deep
mhm.
answer to
Sure.
the
Okay.
to the
Yeah. If I'd met 15-year-old Randy and I said, "Do you want to get married one day and have kids and the whole marriage thing?" What do you think you would have said?
Oh, I probably would have said, why do you need to get married? I would do what I've seen modeled, which is you live
Mhm,
with people.
mhm,
Marriage doesn't really show anything because people don't stick to it.
mhm. Okay.
My dad had, I think, 5 live-in relationships where he lived with people. And the joke about my dad was his lack of commitment.
What was your thought about love, finding love, being loved, loving somebody?
I don't even think I knew what that meant. To me, it would have been more of a sexual expression versus again, that's an adolescent. I think many adolescents think that way. I wouldn't even know what that meant. Again, as being insecure, not even loving myself, having that low self-worth, I would not have even known what love was. even though my mom and dad, I would know that I could say that they love me. They still stuck with me
Mhm.
despite my terrible behavior. I stole from my mom.
Mhm.
I did that to sell drugs. I was not good.
Okay, so last we left, you were 15 and you had
Yeah,
moved out of your mom's house.
yeah, yeah.
So maybe just tell us a little bit, how did you get from there? Because you've been married for many years, you have children, you've got grandchildren, you've had this beautiful life of what you didn't see modeled of commitment, love. What happened between 15 and sort of to get you to the place where you actually thought marriage is a good idea and commitment is good and love is a possibility?
Yeah, so drugs obviously caused me into this downward spiral of life. I found out when I was 16, I didn't have to go to school anymore. So I said, forget school because cramps my style. And I like drugs, so I started selling drugs. So in selling drugs, got it with bad people, bad drug deal, threat my life, so forth, so on. That led me to going, what am I doing with my life? This is really stupid. You're going to die. Jesus interfered through a number of very dramatic showing that he was actually real and that I could look to him. And then when I said yes, and even then after I said yes, there was the challenge. I still went back to drugs. I did that for a little bit. And I ended up going through a Christian drug rehab program called Teen Challenge. And through that, started to understand who God was and study who he was and what he was about and who Jesus was, and that Jesus and God were the same people and they're
Mhm.
both the same. And it wasn't big, bad, meanie God, and Jesus was the nice guy. Understanding all of that, and through all of that, and was this transformation in my own inner life and who I saw who I was, working through the pain that I felt through the divorce, significant spiritual, physical moment of healing from the
Mhm.
pain of the breakup with my mom and my dad. Had to work through some stuff with my mom that was really healthy, and that was an ongoing thing for the rest of my adult life. That just changed everything. And then I came into Youth of the Mission and was a part of that community. And again, more depth of understanding of who God was and the opportunity to learn and grow. I meet Rita and that idea of commitment. I remember when I said, hey, I like you, you like me, what do we do now? And I remember the next day going, oh, what did I do? Talking to God about it. And he basically, what he said, what I heard in my mind was, if you're going to go for it, you've got to stick with this.
Mhm.
So it's either stay yes now or get out now. I felt like I had a choice, but
Mhm.
it was like, you're going to do it. You're going to walk through it as much as you go. And the commitment issue thing that I didn't see in my family life, I think because of that, I say interference of Jesus, intervention in my life
Mhm.
of
Yeah.
Jesus, that idea of commitment to God and then also to commitment to people in general, but then with a spouse
Mhm.
was that if I say yes and we get married, which we did, that's for life, whether I like that or not. That all has to do with my understanding of, I understand commitment to be from from what, as I read the scriptures and as I understand of talking to God and his relationship with us, that he's committed to us, he's faithful to us, and he uses that marriage image lots of his relationship with us as people, then that's what commitment is.
Thank you for sharing that, Randy. It's amazing how the transformation can happen sometimes very quickly, or some things happen quickly, and then other things
Yeah,
it's just
totally.
decades later, and probably there's still some things in your life right now that you think, oh yeah, maybe that's something to do with my parents or my dad or whatever.
I would say we have traits no matter what, right?
Uh-huh.
Whether good, bad, divorced, not divorced.
Mhm.
Obviously, our parents influence us.
Yeah.
Whether we like that or not,
Yeah.
there's an influence on
Mhm.
our lives. There's things that I see from my mom that I don't like in me, and I see things from my dad that I don't like in me.
And probably things from your mom and dad that you really do like in yourself that you
For
gain
sure.
from them that are a gift. And what I find so complicated is that it would be simpler if it was all good or all bad.
Yes.
The weaving together and the way that they get intertwined that can make
Yeah.
I find so complicated because sometimes I look at myself and I go, I'm acting just like my mom or my dad, and I'm both happy and upset about that. Because I see that it can be really good, but it can also be really difficult at times. So now many years past, maybe your perspective, what do you think children and adult children of divorce, what can help them? Or so if people are watching this video and they're not a child of divorce, we all know people who are divorced. What can we as community people, part of the broader community, do that could help regarding that pain that they've experienced and the rejection, the lack of self-worth, et cetera, some of the things that you've named?
Obvious thing for me would be acceptance
Mhm.
and commitment. And commitment is keeping our word. We say something to somebody that we're committed to them, then we should be committed to them in whatever aspect that we're doing that. For some reason that commitment isn't work, then that means difficult discussions that you need to talk about. But then you're talking about it, you don't just leave. And
Mm.
I think then that would just continue to perpetuate, especially I think the feeling of this is kind of what happened in my family. That's what I've seen with people from broken homes. The church should be that, because again, that's my understanding of what God is with us, faithful to an unfaithful people. So
Mhm.
committed, even if people are not doing what they're saying they're going to do, but you're still committed to working through process and talking and walking it out and being there for people. And when they act up, then you're still
Mhm.
there. Let's be committed and then help through the brokenness and to, find the places of healing and support that people would need.
I can definitely say that in my relationship with you and your wife Rita over all these years, I've experienced a real
Mm.
depth of that, of your commitment to me, your hospitality to me, generosity to me. I remember one time when Rita just said, "Here's a key to our house. You just come and go whenever you want." And I had never experienced that before, that a family who, yes, I knew you quite well, but that you would simply just include me in your life, in your family, and I knew that I could call on you if I needed it. And that definitely was a healing part of my healing journey because I couldn't depend on my parents or my extended family to be that kind of to take that role for me. And so to have somebody who wasn't my family offer that was really significant and really inspired me to want to have that same type of generosity and hospitality in my own home with people that I meet now. And so thank you for that.
Thank you
Mhm.
for sharing that.
Yeah.
It's our privilege.
So I think we're kind of at the end of our questions, but is there anything
Okay.
else that you think might be interesting to mention? Randy, what would you say, what could have helped you when you were a child?
A number of years ago, somebody was moving into the house across the street. I went and introduced myself. Hello, welcome. Who are you? And he said, well, actually, I live 2 blocks, 3 blocks down, but we've recently been divorced. I wanted to stay in the neighborhood so my daughter could have a place here and go to the same school and she could come and go and she could have her same friends. And I just thought, that's, I wish my parents had done that. That is very thoughtful of the child. In the divorce with my parents, my dad did not think of us. He was out of the marriage and therefore the mom got the kids. Where this guy or this couple, even though they broke up, made a commitment to stay and be close, to try to give their daughter a somewhat normal,
Yeah.
but way better where then she could come and be there during the week too. It didn't disrupt her life
Mhm.
as much as if he lived somewhere else
Yeah.
and like going every 2 weeks and never seeing my dad hardly.
Yeah.
When I heard that, I went, oh,
Mhm.
I wish
Yeah.
that was me. I
Yeah.
wish I had that.
No, that's really good, Randy, because I think so often, as you say, parents get divorced and they're not thinking what is going to help the kid have a stable ongoing continuity in their life. They're thinking, where can I buy an apartment? Where does my new boyfriend or partner live? And then the kids just get taken back and forth. And as time goes by, they might get used to it. But there's huge sacrifices that the children have to make, giving up their social life, their friends, their school. It's just loss after loss after loss. That's a great example of that. Your neighbors
Yeah.
who had a very different approach. And like, I think, oh, wow, that would have been amazing if I didn't have to drive half an hour and whatever to see my mom every other weekend and give up all my friendships and stay in a strange home and not know the neighbors or anything. Just all that change and loss is really hard.
That really impacted me because I just thought, ideally, people don't divorce, but the reality is some people they
Mhm.
do for whatever reasons they do. But I just thought if people are going to split up, you've got to think of the kids. You cannot just think they can follow you.
Mhm.
You've got to, especially when you're splitting something that was one. I think that's so significant, especially for the child. So it would be an interesting conversation to the child.
Mhm.
It was
Mhm.
That's 10 years ago now. So
Mhm.
that person would be interesting to know how did she deal with that?
Well, thank you so much, Randy. I really appreciate your conversation, your openness, your honesty, your self-reflection, and your advice and input for other people. So if you're watching this and you want to ask yourself or a friend these same questions, you can find them on the webinar, How to Talk with a Friend About Your Parents' Breakup. So as you see, it can be quite fun and it can be helpful. And if we had the same conversation again, we would probably touch on some different things because I find as I talk about my parents' breakup, and particularly when I hear somebody else talk about their situation, it always sparks something new. And I think being able to talk about these things in community is such a helpful way to find healing and connection, and even to erase some of those lies like I'm not good enough, nobody cares, nobody has time for me, which I definitely grew up thinking that a lot. Thank you so much, Randy. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tanya. It was a
Okay, bye.
privilege. See ya.